It's not like he's the actual Secretary of Defense tasked with executing the war. That job, of course, falls to Pete Hegseth, who spent much of the day browbeating allies for not cleaning up the mess that the U.S. has made in the Strait of Hormuz.
There are countries around the world who ought to be prepared to step up on this critical waterway as well. It's not just the United States Navy. Last time I checked, there was supposed to be a big bad Royal Navy that could be prepared to do things like that as well.
I mean, you almost have to admire the sheer hubris. They started a war out of nowhere, a war that didn't have to be waged, a war of choice. They blundered into a strategic dead end. They have made the implicit control of the Strait of Hormuz explicit. And now they're what? Pissed off at the Brits for not cleaning up their mess? It's not at all clear that Hegseth himself was prepared for how this war would play out, with one big, important, and apparent exception. Get this. A broker for Pete Hegseth attempted to make a big investment in major defense companies in the weeks leading up to the U.S.-Israeli attack on Iran. 3 people familiar with the matter tell the Financial Times. Hegseth's broker at Morgan Stanley contacted BlackRock in February about making a multi-million-dollar investment in the asset manager's Defense Industrials Active exchange-traded fund, the people said, shortly before the U.S. launched military action against Tehran. The inquiry on behalf of the high-profile potential client was flagged internally at BlackRock, according to the people familiar with the matter. Think about that one for a second. Try to wrap your brain around that one. U.S. Secretary of Defense, most important thing he'll ever do in his whole life, ordering U.S. troops into harm's way, planning a war. Just takes a little time, reportedly, to try to invest millions of dollars in a defense industry fund on the eve of the war he's overseeing so he can make a fortune on it? A Pentagon spokesman called the story entirely false and fabricated. But the trade request was reportedly serious enough it alarmed people at BlackRock. And though it did not go through, experts note that attempted insider trading is also a crime. It seems clear the people who launched this war saw it as nothing but an opportunity for profit or a poll bump. The scale of the destruction and pain they have wrought is truly incredible, and it could get much worse. Every indication we have says it's going to get worse. More people will die or be maimed. Energy and oil shortages will kill or impoverish many more, and the architects of the war could not possibly care less. They can't hear you over the roller coaster. Just moments ago, the White House announced Trump will give an address to the nation tomorrow night at 9 p.m. for an important update on Iran. We're assuming that it will be from the White House and not from Disney World. Maybe it will be mission accomplished. Senator Chris Murphy is a Democrat of Connecticut. He serves on the Foreign Relations Committee. Joins me now. Nice to have you here in person.
Yeah, great to be here.
Let's start on the Hegseth reporting. I mean, you've got, Financial Times is a very serious news outlet. We have not independently confirmed this reporting. They say this happened. The Pentagon says it's fabricated. It seems to me at a first level, there's some factual issue that we should get to the bottom of, right?
Yeah, I mean, for a trade to raise moral scruples at BlackRock tells you that it was probably a pretty dicey trade. Listen, it does seem that the president and the people around him are spending most of their time either working on the ballroom or trying to get rich off of this war. Hegseth's trade is an abomination in and of itself, but we also know that there were a lot of people likely in the White House or close to the president who were making all sorts of trades right ahead of the invasion on oil markets, but also on prediction markets. A lot of people got very rich off of the U.S. decision to go to war, and 13 Americans killed. This is the most corrupt White House in the history of the country, and war seems to be giving them more opportunities to engage in corruption.
I mean, I have to say, my expectations for what these people do are already, in the gutter. But the thought of planning this war and then making some note to yourself on your iPhone Notes app or a Post-it on the thing of oh, right, I got to call my broker and get it. It's truly appalling. Like, it knocks me back off my chair.
Yeah, and and you also have the president's kids on all sorts of boards of companies that are going to make money off of this war, including drone companies.
Yep.
I mean, the list is very long as to how the entire White House and the entire war operation is being monetized. And it is just true that, well, in and of itself, that corruption is unacceptable. It is also distracting the president and his incompetent team from at least trying to consult with the people who might clean up these messes.
Well, which gets us to the mess now. I mean, okay, here we are. We're a month in. I keep getting whiplash. It reminds me of COVID. You know, in the morning it was like social distancing and you got to stay away. And then it was everything's gonna be open by Easter. Remember that one, right? As we come up on Easter. This idea that this new turn, which is we're going to accept Iranian control of the Strait of Hormuz. We're sending the third carrier to the Middle East. But that the idea that, like, we might just walk away and say, you guys figure it out, is truly galling. I mean, even by their standards.
Yeah. So it's similar to COVID in another respect, in that no matter how rosy Trump's assessment was, people were still watching their neighbors die, right? They were still seeing the death toll mount.
No amount of talking did anything to the virus. The virus is going to do what it's going to do.
Trump may declare victory in this next speech, but gas prices are going to continue to go up and up and up. Food prices are going to go up and up and up. People are going to die in America and all over the world. The carnage of this war is going to have a tail that is going to last likely for the rest of this year. So the reality is that if the war aim is now just to end it and to leave Iran in charge of the Strait, then you have unquestionably made Iran more powerful, right? Iran ends this war with more power, with more regional hegemony, with more influence in the Middle East than they started at the beginning of this war with. That is just a remarkable war aim to essentially say, we're going to end in a way that guarantees Iran is stronger rather than weaker.
You know, their parliament is even now discussing legislation to sort of like formalize a tolling system in the Strait, which, again, didn't exist before. So this is a real thing that their national legislature's considering. At the same time, I can't help but feel like, again, I'll just put my cards on the table. My rooting interest is for this war to end as soon as possible. Like, for people not to get killed, for people not to get blown up, and for American service members to get out of harm's way, and all the civilians. And it may be that the clearest way to do that is for Trump just to unilaterally announce to the nation tomorrow night at 9 that that's the case. And I guess I would take that. I mean, what is your preference here?
Oh, my clear preference is for this to end tomorrow.
Right. Okay. Right. So you're on the same page.
Yeah,
on that.
Because listen, every day the mismanagement and the competence gets deeper and deeper. I mean, remember, they are literally talking about an invasion of Karg Island, holding the island hostage in order to maybe convince the Iranians to stop mining the Strait. You know, that is kind of like the old lady who swallowed the fly, right? Right? It's just we're going to get deeper and deeper in. Yes. We're going to do stupider and stupider things in order to clean up our previous mistakes. Right. And the consequences of that, a ground invasion, that's not a dozen Americans dying, right? That's hundreds, if not thousands of Americans dying. So, yes, this needs to stop because every single day it gets more insane and more dangerous.
The ballroom obsession. I just want to play, a federal judge said you have to go to Congress. Right. Again, this, not even at like a legal level. I just say a sort of like first pass. What are my instincts here? It's like, I think Congress should weigh in on it. But the president's very mad about this. He was ranting about the judge who halted it. Take a listen to what he had to say.
But basically, he's saying I need congressional approval. And he's so wrong. For 150 years, they've wanted a ballroom here. We're going to have the finest ballroom, I believe, anywhere in the world. And he said, we need congressional approval. Well, they don't get congressional approval from the White House. When they do things, they don't, especially when we didn't ask for any tax money.
What's so striking to me is how palpably invested he is in this issue and how granular his knowledge of the plans of the ballroom are compared to the entire other portfolio of the sitting president of the United States.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't joking earlier when I said I think Trump is only working on the ballroom and money-making schemes for himself these days. Like, I think that might actually be true. He's clearly working a lot less than he ever has been before. He's still watching a lot of TV. He's still on social media. So when he's actually working, it may be true that he's working in a very detailed way on the ballroom. And again, remember, the ballroom is a corruption project as well, right? All of the donors to that ballroom are individuals or companies who have interest before the government, including some of the biggest defense contractors in the country, who are no doubt whispering into the ears of Hegseth and Donald Trump that, you know what might be good? A war that causes you to spend $200 billion of additional money on the products that we make.
Including, I mean, the reporting on this is a little hard to kind of nail down for understandable reasons. The U.S. Department of Defense is not going to, say this is how many cruise missiles or Patriot interceptors. But it does seem that, an enormous amount of extremely expensive equipment has been used. Yes. Like, a incredibly, almost shocking, sizable portion of, say, our Tomahawk cruise missiles that we don't make a ton of. And, directly, that's going to go back, the contractors who get the contract for that now are going to get contracts to make more. It's a pretty direct line.
It's a pretty direct line, but also it's a massive exposure for American national security. There are a lot more important reasons to use a Tomahawk missile than a preemptive invasion of a nation that does not pose an imminent threat to the United States. And so there are many in the national security infrastructure who are deeply worried about the fact that we are spending so much of our interceptor capacity in the Middle East when we may need them for actual threats against the United States in the future. And oh, by the way, they are now starting to preview that the way they are going to pay for this replenishment of missiles and interceptors is to cut people's health care. So they are now saying that we're going to pay for the war by cutting even deeper into Americans' health care.
Say more on this, because basically, so here's how I've tracked the reporting on this. It was the first there's reporting the Pentagon is going to ask for $200 billion. I've asked every Democrat who's appeared on my program, are you a yes or no on that? Everyone has said no. And most have said hell no. And even Adam Smith, who's a ranking member on armed services and is not a person who's by instinct opposed to defense spending, let's put it that way, is no, absolutely not. It looks like a $200 billion blank check is going to be a tough sell in both houses, particularly in the House where they, 3-vote margin. The sort of right wing of that caucus wants to see cuts. So now the plan is that they're going to cut health care more to pay for it? Is that real?
I don't know whether it's real, but it is true that the quickest way to make something more popular amongst Republicans is to cut people's health care.
Right. That's right.
So it's the war is
the garnish.
Right, exactly. Well, this war really stinks. People hate it, but are you going to throw 10 million more people off the health care?
Right.
Sign me up.
Right.